Danger is always lurking around the corner. It is ever present, but it is not what the mainstream media and what the government tells us that ISIS, that Al-Qaeda, the boogeyman is coming to get us. In fact, it is right here in our own backyards already. Today we will discuss the secrets of the Nazis that are still in control. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. I want to dig deep into this today. I'll connect all of the dots, and let's get into it right away. I was reading this article out of Bloomberg. The world's largest hedge fund manager is banking on machines. So this is Bridgewater Associates getting into an artificial intelligence unit. Right here, the team is going to report to David Ferrucci, who joined Bridgewater at the end of 2012, and he worked with IBM engineers that developed Watson. Watson was actually a computer program, essentially, that was beating out human opponents on the show Jeopardy! Quite amazing. And I was thinking to myself, where have I heard about this computer named Watson before? Well, let's look back into the pages of history. This is out of the Huffington Post, but you can find this information practically anywhere. The Nazis used computers in order to basically document and database all of their criminal activity. And these were purchased from IBM. In fact, the creator being Watson, and one of their names of the computers was Watson Business Machines. In fact, naming it after him. This is quite amazing. And of course, IBM had to hide everything that they were doing because this continued on throughout the war, in fact. So this is not just the only company, but this is one very special one because of how really intertwined they were with the Nazis. So that is quite amazing information there. Now, what about Bayer? You may have heard of them before. They are the pharmaceutical giant that still exists today. Now, we all know about the gas chambers that took place in the Holocaust. The individual company that made those chemical weapons was IG Farben, one of the biggest companies at that time, and they were definitely profiting off of the madness that was occurring. Bayer, which at the time was part of the giant IG Farben chemical conglomerate, bought concentration camp inmates from the Nazis for use in conducting its own experiments. This is just one example I was showing you here. However, I just wanted to note that, yes, IG Farben was the company responsible for all of this activity that was taking place at the time. They were profiting off of the death of everyone that went into the gas chambers among all of the other chemical weapons that were used during that time. There was also some information that was disclosed that, number one, the plants for IG Farben were not shelled, were not destroyed during the bombardment after World War II. So this is quite amazing that they were allowed to continue what they were doing. But of course, they weren't allowed to be IG Farben because that would be bad. You can't just let them continue to do business. They were split up, and here they are still today doing business as Bayer. So in fact, these companies are still doing business. They were allowed to continue on throughout the World War II and beyond. Let's look at this out of the San Francisco Gate. By 1926, Rockefeller had donated some $410,000, almost $4 million in today's money, to hundreds of German researchers. In May 26, Rockefeller awarded $250,000 towards the creation of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Psychiatry. This is when the eugenics of Germany at the time was really born, because it actually started in the US. In fact, you can read about that yourself. Eugenics took place where they were sterilizing people and all of their other activities I'm simply not going to get into in this video. It is really gruesome to read about it. I've done that twice before, and that is simply enough for me. I'm not going to get into the details of that. I just can't really read about it at all. But this right here is just to show you that they were in fact the bankers, not just in the US, but also from Britain, funding the Nazis, funding eugenics, and all of the criminal activity that was taking place during that time. This right here out of the New York Times. Declassified papers show US recruited ex-Nazis. Wait a minute, they were on the same page? Could that be? Well, after World War II, American counterintelligence recruited former Gestapo officers, SS veterans, and the Nazi collaborators to an even greater extent than had previously disclosed, and helped many of them to avoid prosecution or look the other way when they escaped, according to thousands of newly declassified documents. This was back in 2010. This article here. But essentially what was happening was they were on the same side as the people that they were supposedly against. And this is obviously extremely criminal. This should have not been able to allowed to happen, but of course it certainly did. And it gets worse. Let's go on here. Secret files reveal 9,000 Nazi war criminals fled to South America after World War II. This article is out of the Daily Mail, and the one note here is that as many as 5,000 Nazis went to Argentina and others as well. You can also read about how the worst criminals, in fact, from the Nazi Party were given asylum in areas like Argentina, like the US. They were totally ran away scot-free, and they did not have to face the Nuremberg trials. So the biggest criminals, after all, didn't have any trouble throughout this entire time, other than the fact that they had to relocate where they were living. So this is going to show you how deep this really runs. Look at this. This is what it all comes down to, in fact. The illusion of choice. We have consolidation. This is regarding the media itself, but I want to extend that onto everything. But let's get into this for a moment. Media has never been more consolidated. 6 media giants now control a staggering 90% of what we read, watch, and listen to. 6 companies. And if you really look further up the chain, you will see that they are in fact all interconnected. And this goes to show you how we are never allowed to learn the real truth, not the fake truth that we are presented with. And this is exactly why this has been going on since the dawn of time, and we need to bring out the truth because it is so deeply intertwined in everything that we've been unfortunately been presented with for all these years. Let's look at this. Taxfoundation.org had these facts here. The US loses about 60,000 corporations per year and has lost about 1 million since the Tax Reform Act of 1986. Definitely we have the corporations leaving. We have the corporations actually going elsewhere. They're closing down. Many of them are trying to seek additional profit by going overseas, but many are simply going away because they cannot afford what has been happening. Now, when you have a big institution like, for example, Walmart, putting out of business all of these smaller and mid-sized retailers, they are able to manipulate and control the supply of the products, of the programming that we receive, because of course you put the power into fewer and fewer hands, and you're able to control everything that is happening. Just take a look at this from my book here. Additional international organizations or funds will be created, and existing ones will have their powers expanded in order to save economies around the world from collapse. And I just want to note, additionally, these promises have been made many times before. I'll get into that, why I'm mentioning that in a moment. Just wanted to show you that these corporations are intertwined with the governments. They make the laws, they lobby the governments, they have their alumni in the highest positions of power in these governments, and you can see how bad things have become. Now let's look at a page of history, the Enabling Act, the law passed by the German Reichstag in 1933 that enabled Hitler to assume dictatorial powers. So he said essentially, give me this chance to make Germany great. Let me take control. Let me just do this right now, and I promise that everything is going to be okay. You can trust me. And of course, this all came after the German parliament was set ablaze, and of course was done by their own party. And that was in order to have this Enabling Act put into place. They always consistently create their own problems so that they can have the solution waiting on the other side. That's called the Hegelian dialectic, also known as problem, reaction, solution. And let's look at a more modern example. The President signs the National Defense Authorization Act. And for those who don't know, this right here, this is what they claim. It is to respond to emerging needs in the face of evolving terrorist threats and emergent crisis worldwide. We've heard all of this before. I certainly am not fooled by it, because it is the same thing happening over and over again. The National Defense Authorization Act allows the President of the United States, currently Obama, and perhaps in the future a different president, to essentially indefinitely detain, torture, kill any single person that he wishes, all because of a suspicion of activity that may undermine national security. These words are very, very vague. They're very dangerous. And this is the kind of talk that was going on in 1933. We had this kind of criminal activity taking place during the Nazi era, during World War II, in the build-up. And unfortunately, all of the biggest criminals were allowed to continue doing business. And they still exist today. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. I really want to get into the deep intel, and I hope that you are interested in this type of information. Of course, please let me know. It is very important. I do read all the comments. It's very hard for me to get back to them, but I do read the current day's video as well as the previous day's video. I'm always trying to read the comments. I always reply to the emails. They're building up. But that is a good sign for truth. It is a good sign for liberty. And I just want to know if, what you guys are interested in. I want to do more videos that are similar to this, to get into the deep intelligence, to also educate the public on any subject I possibly can. And I hope that you are certainly enjoying that. Don't forget to become a subscriber on the YouTube here. We are now over 17,000, growing strong. Thank you to all of the new people that are here. Thank you to all those who came over from the most recent SGT report interview I had done. And also join 2,000 insiders, because the insiders is where I give out all my best intel for free. That is available at themoneygps.com. You scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.